Welcome back to BeFM Drama, where we turn great works of English literature into gripping radio. Tonight we're presenting the final episode in our 3-part adaptation of The Signalman, the first of 2 classic ghost stories from the Victorian master author Charles Dickens. In this story, a stranger curious about the railroad has ventured down to visit the signalman working in a narrow railway cutting. The signalman seemed disturbed, and when the stranger asked why, he was treated to a strange and disturbing story about a warning ghost who haunts the railroad, warning the signalman of future disasters. Twice the appearance of the specter has foretold death, and now it has appeared again. Having listened to the signalman's tale, the man and his guest prepare to venture forth and investigate the strange apparitions that have so haunted him. The signalman bit his lip as though he were somewhat unwilling to leave the comfort of his box, but arose. I opened the door and stood on the step, while he stood in the doorway. There was the danger light. There was the dismal mouth of the tunnel. There were the high, wet stone walls of the cutting. There were the stars above us. "Do you see it?" I asked him, taking particular note of his face. His eyes were prominent and strained.
"No, it is not there."
Agreed. We went in again, shut the door, and resumed our seats.
"By this time you will fully understand, sir, that what troubles me so dreadfully is the question, what does the specter mean?"
I was not sure, and I told him that I did not fully understand. He fixed his gaze on the fire and sat thinking.
"What is it warning against? What is the danger? Where is the danger? There's danger overhanging somewhere on the line. Some dreadful calamity will happen. It is not to be doubted this 3rd time, after what has gone before. But surely this is a cruel haunting of me. What can I do?"
He pulled out his handkerchief and wiped the drops from his heated forehead.
"If I telegraph danger on either side of me, or both, and I can't give a reason for it, I'll get into trouble and do no good. They would think I was mad. This is the way it would work. Message: danger, take care. Answer: what danger? Where? Message: don't know, but for God's sake, take care. They would replace me. What else could they do?"
His pain of mind was pitiable to see. It was the mental torture of a conscientious man oppressed beyond endurance by an unintelligible responsibility involving life and death. He pushed his dark hair back from his forehead and rubbed his hands against his temples in an extremity of feverish distress.
"When the specter first stood under the danger light, why did it not tell me where that accident was to happen if it must happen? Why not tell me how it could be averted if it could have been averted? When on its second coming it hit its face, why not tell me she is going to die, let them keep her at home? If it came on those 2 occasions only to show me that its warnings were true, and so prepare for me the 3rd, why not warn me plainly now? And I, Lord help me, a mere poor signalman on this solitary station, why not go to somebody with credit to be believed and power to act?"
When I saw him in this state, I saw that for the poor man's sake, as well as for the public's safety, what I had to do for the time being was calm his mind. Therefore, setting aside all question of reality or unreality, I told him that he did his duty well, and that he could at least take comfort in knowing that he understood his duty, even if he could not understand these confounding apparitions. In this effort, I succeeded better than in my attempt to reason him out of his conviction that he had seen this figure. He became calm. The work required by his post as the night went on became the center of his attention, and I left him at 2 a.m. I had offered to stay the night, but he would not allow it. The more I looked back at the red light as I made my way out of the cutting, the more I did not like the red light, and I would have slept badly if my bed had been lit by it. I see no reason to conceal that I shuddered to think of it. I did not like the sequence of tragedies either, the accident and the dead girl. I see no reason to conceal that either. But what ran most in my thoughts was the consideration of how I ought to act, having become the recipient of this bizarre disclosure. I had proved the signalman to be intelligent, vigilant, painstaking, and exact, but how long could he remain so in his state of mind? Though in a low position, he still played a life-or-death role, and would I, for instance, like to stake my own life on the chances of his continuing to do his work with precision while suffering from such anxiety? Unable to overcome a feeling that it would be treacherous to communicate what the signalman had told me to his superiors in the company, I ultimately decided to offer to accompany him, otherwise keeping his secret, to the wisest practitioner of psychiatry we could find in those parts, and to take his opinion. A change in the signalman's time of duty would come around the next day, and he had told me he would be off an hour or two after sunrise, and on again soon after sunset. I had arranged to return again then. The next evening was a lovely evening, and I walked out early to enjoy it. The sun was not yet quite down when I crossed the field path near the top of the deep cutting. I would extend my walk for an hour, I thought. Half an hour out and half an hour back, and it would then be time to go down to the signalman's box. Before beginning my stroll, I stepped to the brink of the cutting and mechanically looked down. I cannot describe the tingling thrill that went through me when, close by the mouth of the tunnel, I saw the appearance of a man, with his left sleeve over his eyes, passionately waving his right arm. The nameless horror that oppressed me passed in a moment, for I saw that this appearance of a man was indeed a man, and that there was a little group of other men, standing at a short distance from him, to whom he seemed to be demonstrating the gesture he made. The danger light was lit. Against its shaft, a little low hut, entirely new to me, had been made of some wooden supports and tarpaulin. It looked no bigger than a bed. With an irresistible sense that something was wrong, with a flashing, self-reproachful fear that fatal mischief had come upon my leaving the man there, and causing no one to be sent to overlook or correct what he did, I descended the notched path with all the speed I could make and approached the group of men. "What's the matter?"
"Signalman killed this morning, sir."
"Not the man belonging to this box?"
"Yes, sir."
"Not the man I know?"
"You'll recognize him, sir, if you knew him."
The man solemnly moved over to the wooden hut that had been erected by the rails and pulled a board aside to reveal a tarpaulin-covered shape. He then raised one corner so that I could see the dead face of the man I knew.
"You see, his face is quite composed."
"Oh, how did this happen?"
"He was cut down by an engine, sir. No man in England knew his work better. But somehow he was not clear of the outer rail. As the engine came out of the tunnel, his back was towards her, and she cut him down. I was the man who drove her, and was showing the others how it happened."
"How did it happen?"
"Coming round a curve in the tunnel, sir. I saw him standing at the end. There was no time to check speed, and I knew him to be very careful. As he didn't seem to take notice of my whistle, I shut it off and called to him as loud as I could call."
"What did you say?"
I said, "Below there! Look out! Look out! For God's sake, clear the way!"
I started at the shock of recognition I felt when I saw the driver gesture and heard the words that he spoke.
It was a dreadful time, sir. I never stopped calling to him. I put this arm before my eyes so I wouldn't see, and I waved the other to the last moment, but it was no use.
Without prolonging this story to dwell on any one of its curious circumstances more than another, I may, in closing, point out the coincidence that the warning of the engine driver included not only the words which the unfortunate signalman had repeated to me as haunting him, but also the words which I myself, not he, had attached, and only in my own mind, to the gesture both the specter and the engine driver had made towards him. And with that, we've come to the end of the third and final episode in our adaptation of The Signalman by Charles Dickens. The fearful specter that haunted the cold and isolated railway cutting and terrorized the signalman with its premonitions of disaster has once again signaled the coming of death. This time, however, the one to die was the signalman himself, and all that he'd seen in the weeks leading up to the incident had been foretelling the terrible fate that had been laid out for him. Adding to the chilling feeling of the man's death is the fact that the words of the engine driver, shouted desperately in the final moments before the engine ran down the hapless signalman, were exactly the same words with which the narrator first greeted the signalman at the beginning of the story. The same words that were called out to him over and over by the specter that so haunted his final days. This brings us to the end of our first tale for this week. Join us again tomorrow as we embark on the telling of another classic Dickens ghost story here on BeFM Drama.